rated mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised. Welcome to the Patriot Brief. Hey, how you doing? I'm your host, Mike. On to today's brief here.
America has decided to go another way.
The new President-elect Joe Biden faces what may be the biggest
coronavirus confirmed in record time.
President Trump tested positive for COVID-19.
Death toll climbing above 200,000 Americans.
Calls for justice continue to fill the streets.
Today, the dire situation in Italy got even worse.
The first death this weekend in Washington State. President Trump, the third president to be impeached.
We built the greatest economy anywhere in the world. Patient number one arrived here in this. He did.
Facts and science, that's the only thing that's going to get us through this.
We're seeing hallways with patients and doctors that are completely overwhelmed.
And it takes 18 days to get to the president. Correct.
Every lab is fighting for itself. Every state is fighting for itself.
There's a failure in the system. It creates sheer and utter chaos.
She's 30 years old. She just had a baby. She's really sick.
31 employees of a local farm company have been infected by
It doesn't feel like we're essential. It feels like we're slaves.
How big is this problem?
The country's on fire and their anger is directed at law enforcement officers.
Can this be done in a way that still respects people's rights?
There's way more kids like this that's going through the same thing as we are, because sometimes life just happens and things go the wrong way.
Black and brown people who are disproportionately impacted by the virus, well, that's the same group of people that can make and break an election.
government orchestrated inside job.
Conspiratorial thinking is a feature of this president.
Mitch McConnell had the votes from start to finish. He knew it, and he behaved that way all along.
This is a conflict that's less about policy or direction for the country, but it's really a vision of what the country ought to be. The division that has been created here recently is going to take generations to recover.
Now, what's the next step? It's not over. This is just the beginning.
Hello, folks. Welcome to another edition of the Patriot Brief. I'm your host, Mike. On to today's news, reviews, and reviews. Today, I want to cover, folks, basically 2020. I'm going to be calling this this episode the year in review. Basically, frontlining what basically happened from the coronavirus pandemic, to protests, to the polls. 2020, folks, has been definitely a year of unprecedented, crazy, dramatic, frustrating, and sometimes angered times of our generation. Folks, we've seen stuff happen in this year that basically we would never imagined in our lifetimes. We would never imagined the riots, the civil unjust rages, the divided federal government of our country. Racial injustice, racism, hatred, and just downright chaos and destruction. But you know what? Through all this we've learned here in this year, what has it taught us? It definitely has taught the vulnerable people to seek honesty and to also be more friendly to others. What has it also taught us? That when things are going in the right proportion, in the right way, things can also take a drastic turn. And 2020, folks, has definitely taken a drastic turn. We've learned through the visualizations of 2020, 20 visual and life-changing events in 2020. Over 1 million lives were lost in the pandemic. Oil prices turned negative and protests swept through the streets. At the same time, 10 years of technology advancements seemed to happen in mere months. And now vaccines are rolling out at a record speed. In the show today, we'll round up some of the year's biggest news events that we are deared in this year. With the year ending in just a few days, we can look back at 2020, folks, as a year to understand our livelihood better, or a year to just forget and bring on that new year of 2021. Folks, whatever your view on 2020 is, it will be an historic year that we will never forget. We'll be right back after these words, folks. Don't go anywhere. Hello, folks. Back here on the brief. For those who's just joining in, we're talking about 2020 and the year of review of this crazy unprecedented time of human history, right? Folks, I'm trying to before I go in there, I want to say one thing. We thought past years were awful, but I'm telling you right now, so far, I've never seen in any year such as 2020 to be any worse than it is now in this current year of 2020. Folks, I'm trying to think of something to say nice about 2020, but here it goes, okay? Here it goes. Nobody got killed by the murder hornets, as far as we know, right? Does anybody remember the murder hornets back this past summer? That was going to be the next wave of the pandemic to follow the coronavirus. Nobody got killed by murder hornets, as far as we know, or as far as the mainstream media reported on it. That's pretty much it, right? In the past, writing annual reviews, I've said some harsh things about previous years, okay? I owe those years an apology. Compared to 2020, folks, all previous years, even the disco era, were the golden age of human existence. This year of nonstop awfulness, a year when we kept saying it couldn't possibly get worse. And it always did. This was a year, folks, in which our only moments of genuine, unadulterated happiness were when we were able to buy toilet paper. I mean, pretty much. Which is fitting because 2020, folks, was long howling Category 5 crap storm that we came to see it as. We sincerely don't want to relive this year, folks, but our job is to review it. Our job is also to learn from it. If you would prefer to skip this year and move to the next, learn from a previous year, folks, before you move to the next year. Because we completely understood this year. If, however, you wish for some sick reason to experience 2020, now is the time to put on your face mask, douse your entire body with hand sanitizer, and then, to be safe. Don a hazmat suit as we look back at unrelating insanity of this hideous year. Starting with January, which is only a few days away, which begins with all of Washington as well as parts of Virginia and Maryland, gripped by the gripping historic drama of the impeachment of Donald Trump. Right? That's what it started. So we only have a few days left of this year. But let me go back to January, right? The hideous year began with January. Starting with January, right? I'll rewrite this again. Starting with January, folks, which begins with all of Washington and parts of Virginia and Maryland, gripping historic drama of the impeachment of Donald Trump. Remember that? How gripped were we? To set the stage back, in mid-December, the House of Representatives passed 2 articles of impeachment, after which Speaker Nancy Pelosi, in accordance with the U.S. Constitution, handed out souvenir signing pens. Everyone expected that Pelosi would then send the articles to the Senate. But as early as January, the Senate has not received them. People are wondering if Pelosi, what with her various official duties and hairdresser appointments, simply forgot to send the articles. Or maybe she tried to send them, but because of the bureaucratic snafu, they would wind up at a different federal agency, such as the Coast Guard. We all seen the impeachment, folks, as a joke. Another political weapon to try to take down this president. Failed. Fast forward to February. Washington and its suburbs remain gripped by the U.S. Senate's historic impeachment trial of President Trump, with Democratic prosecutors arguing that Trump illegally pressured Ukrainian leaders to benefit himself politically, while the Republican defense team employing a strategy claim that Trump was playing golf at the time. More scrutiny by the far left. Fast forward, folks, to March, right? Now, March is when we were introduced to the pandemic. We were introduced to social distancing. We were introduced by the quack doctor, Fauci, saying to socially distance, we need to slow the spread by 2 weeks. 2 weeks, folks, then became 2 months. 2 months became 6 months. 6 months became to where we are now. But I don't want to go too far into the future of 2020. I'm giving you highlights, folks, of basically our year in review. Fast forward to May, right? May is when the summer was about to begin, and we were thinking that the spread would basically disappear. The hot summer months would kill this virus for good. Ha ha ha. Seriously, we thought wrong. We begin to hate each other more than ever. We disagree about everything. We were told that the economy was going to reopen, but we were basically told to wear masks. Yes, we even were told to wear masks to go to the beach. How chaotic is that, right? Let's fast forward a little bit more. Meanwhile, over the course of the summer, in a basement somewhere in Delaware, Joe Biden and his campaign team have managed to produce a webcam, which they intended to use to log onto the internet so that Joe's campaign message can go viral. Just as soon as Joe decides what it is. And in scandal news, the Justice Department moves to drop all charges against former President Trump's National Security Advisor, Michael Flynn. Outraged Democrats claim this was a travesty of justice. Outraged Republicans claimed it is proof that the deep state tried to stage a coup. And thus we are back to arguing about the 2016 election. Folks, they went backwards, back to the whole 2016 election. Fast forward the year a little bit more. And you think that by June, things are going to basically decrease a little bit, so to speak. In June, the protest movement grows in a size and passion with frankly not a lot of social distancing, right? So social distancing that was introduced back in March just doesn't matter now in the month of June. In Washington, D.C., we've seen large crowds gather in front of the White House. President Trump, angered by reports that at one point he retreated to an underground bunker, states that in fact he was merely inspecting the bunker, this beginning a responsibility assigned to the president by the Constitution right after where it was said he was in charge of foreign policy. And you think the year is going to get a little quackier. Let's fast forward a little bit through the summer. In July, COVID cases continue to rise sharply in some southern states, according to the World Health Organization. That an alarming spike in northern states, notably New York, where Governor Andrew Cuomo unveils a poster for sale at $11.50, commemorating in a cartoony manner. Fast forward the year a little bit more. Meanwhile, in Delaware, Joe Biden's team continues to ponder the question of who should be Joe's running mate. The goal being to find somebody who, A, is a woman, and B, has a name that Joe can remember. Everyone thought that Kanye West was going to announce that he was going to be running for president, which turned out to be a joke. Fast forward a little bit more into autumn. We find out that Joe's running mate is no other than Kamala Harris. Fast forward to almost current time of where we are right now in the year of 2020. September. The death of the Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg triggers a classic display of Washington-style ethical contingency as both political parties addressing the issue of whether the vacancy should be filled, and having Republicans demanding that the Democrats do not pack the court. Let's fast forward to where we just about are right now. We've seen the death of the Supreme Court Ginsburg trigger a classic display of Washington style on both political parties, which did play out a big part of the campaign trail both for Trump and Biden. Folks, where we are right now in the months of November through December, when finally, after all the politics and plateaus, so to speak, the debates, the demagoguery, the rallies, the riots, the allegations, it's time, folks, for the American people to do what they have to do. Okay? Eat all their leftover Halloween candy. Because, folks, there's a lot of this year, because there are less few trick-or-treaters that we've seen back in October, right? Because of the pandemic. Folks, Americans also have to understand that in the year 2020, we have to understand where we are going to go in 2021. We can learn from the hate. We can learn from the just about everything that we experience, the social distancing, the masks. We can learn from all this of 2020 and move 2021 into a better year. I think there has to be more common sense and less social distance. Folks, we are all adults. We are not children. Learn from this year and move forward. That's my closing statement, and I hope to see you on the next show. You just heard an episode of the Patriot Brief, an Anchor platform.